Hey, how's it going guys? My name is Aylwood and today we're taking a look at Huntfeast, a brand new game just released on Steam, and to answer the ultimate question, as always, is it worth your time? Also, keep in mind guys, Huntfeast has been released through early access at the time of this review, and since the devs are confident enough to charge us for it, incomplete or not, that means it's open to honest, unhindered opinion the moment it's purchased. So, Huntfeast is a single/multiplayer, indie, action-horror, first-person shooter. Set in the deep forests of Lovengrad, you take on the role of a travelling hunter, set out to uncover the brutal backstory of these cursed lands. You'll be exploring the large open landscapes, hunting down an assortment of savage and unusual creatures, all in hopes of ending the Lycan's curse once and for all. So aesthetically, I have to say I was very impressed by the consistent, simple yet detailed standard of the game's visuals. The way they combine smooth, clean designs with natural, wholesome environments was probably the only reason I picked up this game in the first place. And from that perspective, I wasn't disappointed. Colours used are generally light and vibrant throughout, giving the game a surprisingly welcoming atmosphere that quickly gets off-centered by the perpetual night sky and scary werewolves running around the place. Lighting effects are very nice, again in line with the game's clean, subtle theme, except with a wonderfully powerful, realistic touch that really brings these cursed woods to life. You got the subtle, distant fog effects, environmental lighting, glare effects from enemy archers, moonlight beams through foliage, torch and fire effects, enemy particle effects, and much more. All of which complement each other brilliantly well and really add some serious immersion to your visual experience. There are times where lighting effects seem to blend together quite poorly or appear to vibrate on certain texture surfaces, but as I said, still early access, so understandable. Textures and detail are not bad. Most objects and surfaces are likely stock assets of course, but regardless, get the job done no problem at all. Textures like wood, stone and metal are completely distinguishable from each other and come with varying levels of detail and gloss to allow realistic interactions with lighting. Try not to look too close at every object however, as you may notice inconsistent quality every now and again, but it's the strategically positioned tree and underfoot foliage that really sells it. Very good job there. The UI is amazing, a custom, minimal design that keeps the screen completely clutter-free and simply looks good. Other screens like menus and the map could use some serious work however, as they provide little to no assistance in-game, guidance on selected game modes or how certain features of the game work. Some urgent improvements needed there. The level layout is absolutely massive. Since the entire game is based on one very large outdoor map, it feels like an actual burden to run between points of interest across the map and expect to get there before the creature you're trying to hunt does. The map design, as I mentioned before, is brilliant, but due to your below average top run speed and lack of multiple spawn locations, deaths are extremely punishing and sometimes very off-putting when you've already invested over 40 minutes into a game. Character and enemy designs are far from the best I've seen, but do have some very unique traits that I quite like. Your character has the absolute best animations by far, which is great, although your weapon could be adjusted just a touch to stop it taking up over 40% of the entire screen. Other units like the werewolves, humanoids and beasts however could use some work though. Their walk and run animations don't often match their travel speed, they occasionally hover above the ground during attack animations and don't seem to like interacting with any object other than the ground. The strange floating humanoids and the giant werewolf attack animations though, I have to say are brilliant and definitely freak you out the first time you see them. The game definitely looks and feels like an early access indie game after a good few minutes of playtime due to its many unfinished visual assets present at the moment. But if the devs really decide to knuckle down and put in the work, who knows how good its visual standard could become. The OSTs in Huntfeast are, as you probably noticed, non-existent. Instead of eerie, ominous soundtracks of any kind, you're instead presented with impressively detailed ambient sounds that actually get the job done surprisingly well. Each zone of the map seems to have a small selection of ambient sound combinations that even relate to the area you're currently exploring. The open forests are teeming with wildlife and birds, the moor-like areas have a light yet ominous wind, and the swamp regions sound like they're infested with frogs. All of which definitely help create an immersive outdoor experience that gets its touch of horror from the game's many different extremely good quality sound effects. These can range from flocks of startled crows to hordes of juicy corpse flies to werewolves howling in the distance. Not to mention the very loud, extremely in-your-face enemy sounds, crisp underfoot texture sounds, and the overly powerful weapon shots. The game even suggests using headphones when you first boot it up, something I would also recommend if you really want that gripping sound quality. The game also has some light voice acting action, except in the form of Microsoft David reading from a script. Definitely funny, but does affect the immersion just a touch. All in all, a very impressive sound effect quality that maintains a crisp, simple and powerful presence throughout. Now for the gameplay. So firstly, Huntfeast does indeed have a few different game modes to choose from before you play. You can choose between Story Mode, Black Werewolf Hunt and White Werewolf Hunt. The Black Wolf is basically this game's normal mode, the White Wolf is labelled as very hard difficulty, and Story Mode is all three game modes combined except with a long story mission to introduce you to the game's mechanics and explain the game's lore. Speaking of lore, far from the best storyline in the world, but as mentioned, you take on the role of an unnamed travelling hunter. You hear screams coming from a nearby encampment and decide to find out what's going on. As you save a few villagers, kill a couple of beasts and find documents detailing the werewolf's curse, you decide to follow the clues left by the hunters before you in hopes of neutralising this lichen threat. You follow their advice on developing weapons and utilising strategies until finally transitioning into Black Werewolf mode, where you need to take down the big boy himself. And that's pretty much it from a lore perspective. When you first start the game, you of course select Story Mode if it's your first time playing. You spawn at your character's tiny campsite located just next to the encampment, take control of your character and play. As with other first person shooters, the controls are pretty self-explanatory. Other than your general movement controls, jump, fire, melee, crouch and sprint abilities as you'd expect, you also have the ability to place decoys, throw incense bombs, drop meat, place mines and call Decker. As you explore, you'll find mutilated corpse remains on the ground that your character can pick up and use to create decoys. These are scarecrow-like objects with a bell attached to them that serve as target dummies when enemies are nearby. They can be placed anywhere on the map and draw the attention of pretty much all enemies, especially the big boys. Incense bombs are basically grenades with a long fuse, deal decent damage but can one-shot you if you're too close. You will also come across wild elk in your travels. These can be killed for their meat. Dropping said meat, as you'd expect, is to lure werewolves to the meat's position. I'm not sure if this item actually works though, because on many occasions I've left multiple piles of meat on the ground for over 10 minutes and nothing happens. Who knows, maybe they only like chicken. The mines are powerful proximity bombs that only go off when the big boy wolves are nearby and can only be dropped on top of feast places. More on that shortly. And finally, if you play your strange flute-like object, you can summon your best pal, Decker. Decker, to my surprise, is a small fox that follows you around and loves a good squeak. I'm still not sure what he actually does, but he can be used as a small barricade between you and enemy units, since they seem to attack way less often when Decker's around. The base concept of the game is exactly as you'd expect if you've been paying attention so far. Hunt the big boy werewolves. Easier said than done, take my word for it. When you first load into a map, you'll always spawn at your campsite, but the werewolf will spawn anywhere on the very large map. As you walk around, you'll start to notice distant wolf howls and startled crow sounds that, if you follow them, will slowly lead you to the werewolf's location. When the werewolf takes over a certain amount of damage, it'll stumble and retreat to one of 4 possible feast places. These are big piles of corpses that the werewolf uses to heal a large amount of HP, are often randomly generated around the map, and usually very hard to find. The name of the game is to find these feast places, drop a mine on top of it, attack the beast and hope hope that when he does retreat, he walks directly into a mine instead. This will stop him healing at that location for a moment and deal a decent amount of damage. Simply rinse and repeat until he's dead. During retreats, you'll also notice very bright bloodstains on the ground. These can be followed to locate the werewolf once more, as well as feast places if you're lucky. Although the concept sounds simple enough, keep in mind that it's not just werewolves you need to worry about on these maps. There are plenty of hard-hitting enemies, ranged units and fast attackers, all of which can take you out in less than 5 seconds from full HP if you're sloppy. Most standard enemies do get one-shot by your rifle and don't seem to respawn most of the time. The only problem is their movement speed. Most enemy interactions require fast precision shots as well as tactically timed reloads to deal with threats quickly while taking as little damage as possible. The werewolves themselves hit pretty hard as well and have large attack arcs that you need to keep an eye on. The white wolf mother is especially nasty due to the enhanced damage, higher HP and the fact that she doesn't stand out as well on the white background areas. Not to mention the higher number of general enemies roaming the landscape. Overall, a very impressive, simple and entertaining gameplay concept on paper, but in its current early access form does not do its raw idea justice. So for the ultimate question, is it worth your time? The game's simple, clean and minimalist production quality are by far its greatest assets both visually and audibly. Its gameplay mechanics, however, require some serious maintenance and overhaul work before I would even consider this game actually completable. I'm going to give this game a 2-star or 33 out of 100. A harsh score, I know, but if it wasn't for my own sheer curiosity, I would have given this game a no contest because if you play this game via normal means, it's literally impossible to complete. The werewolves have been designed to retreat to a feast place after receiving a certain amount of damage. I don't know the exact amount, but we'll call it 10% of their health bar or once they hit 90% maximum HP. This is where they retreat, eat at a feast point and restore that missing HP. If you're lucky enough to have the werewolf retreat to a feast point where you've already set a mine, this will obviously drop them below 90% HP. The only problem is they'll simply select another feast point immediately after and attempt to heal again. And since the feast points are a 3-minute run from each other and the werewolf's run speed is at least 10 times faster than yours, you cannot lay down mines quick enough than the werewolf can heal. And better yet, if you try to damage the werewolf just once while he's below 90% max HP, it will immediately activate its retreat animation and look for a feast place yet again. Simply put, if you're playing solo, you cannot kill the fucking werewolf. And good luck trying to find an online match because I left my match open for over an hour and not a single person joined. It seems no one wants to pay full price for Huntfeast, and after actually completing the game myself, I'd have to agree. Now you may be thinking, how the hell did I kill the black and white werewolves when they heal quicker than you can deal damage to them? And funny enough, I discovered that instead of a hard restriction on placing mines at a feast place, it's actually on a secret 90-second cooldown. Meaning after 90 seconds you can place a second mine, then a third mine, then a fourth, etc. I simply AFK'd, placing mines down for about half an hour. Wolf comes along, then boom, wolf steak a la carte. What was more a kick in the teeth was the absolutely shockingly shit ending screen. I can't say what it was because it's technically a spoiler, but trust me, I'd rather complete E.T. on the Atari, fuck it. So long story short, until some serious improvements have been made to the game's mechanics, I definitely wouldn't recommend it. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more games I'll be reviewing in future. I'm really gutted that this game wasn't what I expected. The first half of the story mode was great, but the actual wolf game mode's fucking shocking. But you never know, they might be motivated to fix them. Only time will tell, as they say. But as always, all the best guys, take care.